I think it's safe to say that the MCU multiverse saga has run into a few problems recently. From the underperforming at the box office to the absolute garbage it has put out, it's probably safe to say that the Kang Dynasty isn't going the way we think, considering the actor got, fired. That makes the scene of every Kang in the multiverse being played by Jonathan Majors feel hell of a awkward right now. But I still think Secret Wars is still on the table. I doubt we have the full details of what that entails, but we might as well go over the big question of who's going to be the major villain. Let's start with the obvious, the Beyonder. In the original Secret Wars, the Beyonder was just some powerful being able to summon the heroes and villains across time and space with the hope of determining whether good was stronger than evil or vice versa. Yeah, the whole point of Secret Wars was that it was an excuse to sell toys, and the Beyonder, by extension, was just going to be some guy who's powerful enough to summon all these characters here. He didn't really have much characterization, and we don't talk about Secret Wars 2, no, no, no. Adaptations of Secret Wars, such as Spider Man the Animated Series, really stuck with his characterization. He's a being so powerful and so beyond humans that he wants to pit good versus evil to see which one is stronger. Here is the problem with the Beyonder. He's a pretty bad villain when you realize the serial nature of storytelling. At least in Spider Man the Animated Series, it's mitigated because one of his associates is Madam Web, who has been involved for the plot in that series for quite some time, much to the annoyance of many, many viewers. Hard to do your uber powerful villain from out of nowhere bit when you've learned to expect more serialization from the MCU. Especially when you've built up Kang before this guy got fired. Using the Beyonder would honestly be the safest bet, but I don't like it because it's just too safe, and probably raises more questions than answers. At least with Thanos, you have the Infinity Stones being the big framing device. Okay, so what about Doctor Doom? To that I say, why would you do that? Don't get me wrong, I enjoyed Secret Wars 2015 and the build up in Jonathan Hickman's new Avengers run. The issue I have is that my problem would be the Secret Wars would come out in 2027. We would only have one Fantastic Four film by then, where Doom could reasonably be the main antagonist. Doom is a character who is honestly worth multiple films of build up. If Fantastic Four is the only film outing he has before Secret Wars, then we have a problem with stakes. Doctor Doom becomes God Emperor Doom in Secret Wars 2015 and the original Secret Wars. You really can't have him become a god and then hit the reset button and say, go back to meandering about with the Fantastic Four. And while you can do this in comics, it's a bit harder to stomach in a format like the MCU. It just makes Doom blend into the background, something you do not want Doctor Doom to do. Okay, so what about Wanda? She has reality manipulation powers that could cause multiversal problems, and I still think she's not going to work. Let's not do that. She learned reality warping is not a toy in WandaVision. Then she relearned that lesson in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. I don't think bending over backwards and giving her plot amnesia will be a good idea a third time. Okay, what about the author of the Darkhold, Chthon, who is said to be the first demon? Chthon has a very strong presence in the comics as the source of the chaos magic Wanda uses, and is a supremely powerful reality warper who is enemies with the Sorcerer Supreme and just about everyone. And he also wrote the Darkhold. Since the Darkhold has an established presence in the MCU, he's the one who created the whole multiversal travel thing called dreamwalking, and his spells are so destructive that reality barriers between worlds end up dissolving. And this is what moviegoers would probably be the most familiar with in terms of a multiversal threat. I think he could work, especially since we have only WandaVision and the main movies to go off of. If we go with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., half the conflict in Season 4 comes from humans reading the Darkhold, and the other half of the conflict comes from robots reading the Darkhold, one of which uses it to gain inhuman powers and a physical human body, not just the life model decoys. I think my issue with Chthon is that he might be far too one-dimensional, which, okay, that's not a problem, but the problem is probably that we don't want to have another Malekith situation, where, while one-dimensional, you can command a scene, Malekith never ends up commanding any scenes because, he's not exactly the best written villain in terms of dialogue and acting presence, which is a shame. I don't want Chthon to end up in that trap. Okay, so here's other options. Familiar versions of characters we know. Doctor Strange, or rather an analog of Strange Supreme. Problem is that we sort of did the whole evil Doctor Strange bit in the Multiverse of Madness, and What If, Season 2, as well. Let's not go 3 for 3. Especially since I don't think Season two's What If's Doctor Strange episodes were seen as strong compared to What If Season one's. Dormammu. At least we have a Dimension Lord, and we have seen reality bending effects in the first Doctor Strange film, so maybe he can be a threat? Although I guess Dormammu's sister Umar the Unrelenting can also be a threat. I mean, you do meet her daughter at the end of Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Okay, so we have a lot of magical characters in this. What about non-magical ones? The only one I can really believe that can reasonably take the mantle of villain of Secret Wars without being very contrived with the whole magic bit is Ravana Renslayer. I mean, she has been Kang's right hand in the Time Variance Authority, so she's probably the easiest candidate since the actress already has experience being in the MCU. This is probably my biggest issue with the multiverse saga as a whole. For a saga focused on the multiverse, it doesn't exactly have a grand narrative to it. The Infinity Stones were our through line for Thanos. We don't have that with the multiverse saga. We've branched out and corkscrewed into 50 different directions. I don't even think we know who the Avengers even are. Even with Kang, he's not a particularly intimidating character once you see his face get defeated so many times in the grand scheme of things, and he barely shows up, only showing up in Loki and an Ant-Man movie. That's kinda sad. Some kind of overarching narrative would be great for the multiverse saga, but I don't think we can fix the damage from then. Right now, we are just trying to salvage what has already been damaged. Those are just my thoughts. Please consider liking, subscribing, tipping the channel on Ko-fi. This is Cyril signing off.